Hey, today we're talking about 7 amazing positive changes that you can experience on intermittent fasting that don't have to do with losing weight. In the community, we call these non-scale victories, or NSVs for short, but this is where intermittent fasting goes beyond the scale to tap into optimal health. And you experience things like healthier skin, mental clarity, maybe even a trimmer waistline, just to name a few. But I'm Joe with Wellness Weigh-In, registered nurse by profession, health coach by passion. Let's go. All right, the first NSV I want to talk to you today about is losing inches. And let me encourage you to do what nobody likes to do, and that is take measurements and write them down. That way you know exactly where you're coming from and what you're leaving behind. So the standard American diet and its high carbohydrate intake, really is geared towards storing fat, right? When we eat a lot of carbohydrates, it raises our blood sugar, thus raises our insulin levels, and insulin is a fat storage hormone. So no wonder why we have fatty deposits in our gut, our butt, our legs, our arms, and our neck, and even in our organs like our liver and our pancreas. But here's the beautiful thing about intermittent fasting. When we engage in IF and we stay strong in our protocol, maybe even decrease our feeding window little by little, and maybe we even do some extended fasting into 36 hours, 48 hours, and even 72 hours, our body moves into a state called ketosis, which is a fat-burning metabolic state. This is a beautiful thing because this is the way we can get rid of those fatty deposits. And if you do intermittent fasting, you will intermittently get into ketosis as you shorten your feeding window and increase your fasting window. Now, if you're rambunctious, you can actually stay in continual ketosis if your baseline diet is low enough in carbs to stay ketogenic. Low enough in carbs meaning less than 30 net carbs per day. But as this occurs and your body goes into ketosis more often and for longer periods, you're going to notice these changes where you start to lose inches. Your jeans are going to go on just a little bit easier. They're going to feel a little bit looser. Your shirts are going to be baggier. You're going to have to tighten up your belt just a little bit more. And I remember when this occurred for me, it was about 3 to 4 weeks in my intermittent fasting journey. And I've started to feel this NSV, that my clothes were a little bit loose. And eventually I felt like a little kid in his dad's clothing, going around with all this baggy clothing. But this is a great NSV, especially when you're not moving the needle on the scale. Maybe you're on a plateau with the weight loss. You're going to find that this NSV kicks right in. And even though you're not losing weight, you can definitely tell you're losing inches. The second NSV is healthier, smoother skin. Studies have shown that intermittent fasting can improve skin health and appearance by decreasing inflammation, getting rid of skin pathogens, and controlling the skin's cellular population. As you engage in intermittent fasting and you keep increasing your fasting window, once you hit about the 16 to 20 hour mark of fasting, your body engages in a process called autophagy. Now, autophagy just means self-eating. But it's basically a cellular cleanup process that takes place within our body to get rid of cellular debris, to get rid of damaged and old cells. This allows then healthier, fully functional cells to then take their place. And the health benefits of autophagy have been well documented. Now, what did this look like for me and my skin? At about the 3 to 4 week mark into intermittent fasting, this is when I started to notice that my skin was a lot smoother. I just didn't have, those bumps that we have no idea why we get. But my skin, just to touch, felt so much smoother than it did prior to doing intermittent fasting. Also, it had just a more vibrant, younger appeal to it. It felt more hydrated. I didn't get any itchy patches on my elbows and on my arms and in my calves where I normally get them. And overall, it just was clear. Even my teenage daughter, who for health reasons tried a ketovore diet and also engaged with intermittent fasting, right around the 3 week mark, we noticed that her teenage skin issues were completely gone. All of the pimples, the acne symptoms completely cleared up. Her skin had never been clearer. So if you want clearer skin, smoother skin, healthier skin without all of those products, intermittent fasting is a great way. NSV number 3 is mental clarity and focus. When I was eating the standard American diet, which means I was basically eating whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, I got a lot of brain fog, right? We all do at times, but I remember it was just like a daily thing. I would eat breakfast, then I would eat lunch, and then right after lunch, about 12:30 to 1 p.m., I would get this overwhelming sense of just drowsiness, lethargy, fatigue, brain fog. I wasn't able to focus and I just didn't feel alert and aware. However, when I started to engage in intermittent fasting and was slowly decreasing my eating window and thus increasing my fasting window, I found that all of those symptoms completely disappeared. I didn't have that afternoon, after lunch drowsiness because I wasn't even eating lunch. And I found that I was able to maintain clarity of thought from the morning all the way till I ate when I got home. And so my productivity at work increased by like 3 to 4-fold. But all of those things, the drowsiness, lethargy, those are a thing of the past with intermittent fasting. So what is it about intermittent fasting that does this? Well, one, we talked about autophagy and how it affects our skin health and improves our skin health. The same thing happens in our brain with autophagy. It improves our brain health by getting rid of those old damaged cells, the cellular debris, and allows those fully functional, healthier cells to then take their place in line. Intermittent fasting also upregulates a protein called BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Now, this protein supports the health of existing neurons, but it also encourages the growth of new neurons and new synapses for greater learning ability, greater memory, and then also increased cognitive ability. And who doesn't want more of that, right? Intermittent fasting also increases our brain's ability to resist stress and stressful events and oxidative stress and inflammation. So again, mental clarity and focus, intermittent fasting is a great way to increase both of those. So non-scale victory number 4 is energy and quality of life. When I was first engaging in intermittent fasting, my work schedule was pretty crazy. I would wake up at 2:15 a.m. and then I would work on the COVID units from 3 to 7 a.m. and then do my day job from 7 a.m. to about 4 p.m. My intermittent fasting protocol at that time, during those crazy hours, was 1 meal a day. I didn't eat that meal till about 5 p.m. So I was basically fasting for approximately 23 hours. Now, I didn't have this crazy schedule every day. It was about an average of 3 days a week I would do this crazy schedule. What amazed me, though, was my energy levels. When I was on the COVID units early in the morning, I was bouncing off the walls. I had energy just flowing out of me. I would get 5,000 steps before my family would even brush their teeth. Fatigue, lethargy, none of that, even with waking up so early. Even in the afternoon, I didn't even have that grogginess that you could get, the drowsiness mid-afternoon from waking up so early. So what is it about intermittent fasting? According to recent studies, intermittent fasting to just even a moderate protocol of 16/8, that's fasting 16 hours and eating within an 8-hour time frame. It leads to improvements in quality of life, especially in regards to physical and mental fatigue. They're just non-existent. And so now, again, I live out on a 24 protocol. I find that that's optimal for me. I still have great energy all throughout the day. So my encouragement to you is find that happy medium, find that optimal level, that optimal protocol that gets you the energy you want, but it's still manageable and sustainable as far as an intermittent fasting protocol. Non-scale victory number 5 is reduced inflammation. This is a pretty big one for me because I have rheumatoid arthritis in both of my hands. So in the distal knuckles of my fingers and both hands, I get these nodules that will appear and they're painful. And in the morning when I wake up, I have to pry open some of my fingers. I also get bad sciatic issues, numbness and tingling and discomfort down the back of my left leg. And I also have lower back pain. Now, what I didn't know about intermittent fasting when I first engaged was that it has anti-inflammatory effects. And I would say it took about a month into intermittent fasting where I started to see positive changes in my arthritis and in my sciatic issues and also my lower back pain. About 2 to 3 months into intermittent fasting, all of those issues completely disappeared. I didn't have the sciatic issues. I could stand for long periods, sit for long periods. My arthritic nodules completely subsided. No issues in the morning, waking up and having to flex. No pain. None of that. Completely gone. Now, the Mayo Clinic came out with an article that said research suggests that intermittent fasting may be more beneficial than any other diet for reducing inflammation and helping conditions that are associated with inflammation. Again, this took some time for mine to disappear, about 3 months in all from the time that I started one meal a day. On the flip side, when I am on vacation or when, I'm celebrating and I go back to the standard American diet, it seems like just a few days of eating the standard American diet will bring a lot of those symptoms back. So those issues come back a lot quicker than they leave. So just keep that in mind. But if you're looking to have a lot of those inflammatory conditions go into remission, intermittent fasting may be a key. NSV number 6 is immune boost. Now, this is a non-scale victory that is more behind the scenes. You may not realize the benefit of this NSV until in retrospect, you look back and see how intermittent fasting has affected your overall health through the months and through the years. Now, I can tell you from my own personal experience that I have not had even a cold since I started intermittent fasting several years ago. The last time I can even remember having a fever was in 2020. My wife, who had chronic seasonal allergies, has seen great improvements with those. And also, she hasn't had any of the common viruses and colds that we get every year. Now, my wife and I are both registered nurses, and we're around sick people all of the time. So this is pretty wild because we're usually the avenues that illnesses make their way into our home and then bounce around our family. According to recent studies that looked at dawn to dusk fasting or Ramadan style fasting, they saw an overall health improvement and immune improvement in those subjects. Additionally, not only did this type of intermittent fasting protocol optimize immune system function, but it also had the potential to improve metabolic profile and decrease the risk of cancer and inflammatory conditions at the cellular level. Now, this is pretty amazing that based on the time frames we choose to eat and fast, we can affect prevention at the cellular level. If that doesn't tell you that it's time to weigh in on your own health and take responsibility for your own health, I don't know what does. NSV number 7 is insulin sensitivity and regulated blood sugars. Now, this non-scale victory is personal for me because I was pre-diabetic. I have a lot of family members and friends that are either pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetics. And when we have that label, we carry an increased risk for a whole host of issues, including cardiac issues and cerebral vascular issues. You see, diabetes starts with insulin resistance, which is our body's inability to respond to our own insulin. And what is the culprit? The standard American diet. The very diet that tells us we can eat whenever we want and we can eat as many carbohydrates as we want. You see, the standard American diet causes our glucose to constantly spike. Our body has no choice but to react with ever-increasing insulin levels. This is what leads to insulin resistance over time and causes our blood sugar to raise to high levels and wreak havoc on our system. So what is the best way to increase insulin sensitivity and bring back regulated blood sugars? Well, Diabetes Care published a study recently that said that intermittent fasting does exactly that. Increase insulin sensitivity and regulate our blood sugars. So for all of us diabetics and pre-diabetics out there, IF is a great first step to getting our numbers under control. And if you modify your diet to be low enough in carbs, even low enough to be ketogenic, you have a really great shot at reversing type 2 diabetes. Now, I'm telling you this with all sincerity and all seriousness because I've witnessed this in people that I have coached, that type 2 diabetes does not have to be chronic. It does not have to be progressive. It can be reversed in many instances. So again, if you're looking for insulin sensitivity and reduced insulin levels and regulated blood sugars, intermittent fasting is the way to go. So I'm Joe on Wellness, urging you to weigh in. If you have an NSV that's not on the list that you wish to share, please leave it in the comments. Take care.